Hey, everybody. Hello, hello. It is Friday. It's been a whole 2 days since we last did our first live stream for the Improv Discussion and Resources group. I do need to share this with that group from my page while we're getting started. But I have two lovely friends with me. Joe Bill is back, and we have Elise Rodrigues. Elise, where in the world are you right now?
I'm currently in Miami, Florida for a temporary period of time, but I am much warmer climate than what you are probably experiencing.
Yes, and I do want to give everybody a heads up that there's been snowstorms here in Oregon, and the internet might be a little weird today. Because they're fixing the other lines. We were so lucky, we did a 25-hour improvathon this weekend, and everyone was losing their power. And it was just a miracle that we did not lose our power. I would have lost my mind. Like, we don't have a theater. We're trying to adapt to this digital environment, and we had it planned months in advance, months in advance, and then all of a sudden, a snowstorm that never happens. So.
It's so weird. As soon as you said there might be Wi-Fi problems, both of you immediately froze on my computer.
Oh, great!
And
Lovely.
Yeah, so cool.
How much longer is Mercury in retrograde? You both just froze.
I don't know.
Now I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Okay. Mercury retrograde ends this weekend.
Thank the Lord. Whatever Lord you believe in.
Today we're interviewing Mercury retrograde specialist Elise Rodrigues from Miami. Elise,
That's right.
Tell us about Mercury.
And Elise, you usually are you based in Sarasota mainly?
I am. Yeah, I'm based in Sarasota, but I'm in Miami for a couple months.
And now you and I are in states that are not only in opposite corners of our nation, but they're also opposite ideologically and have dealt with COVID in exactly opposite ways.
Indeed.
So we closed quick. Like Oregon was, we're between Washington. Washington had that early outbreak in Seattle, and then really early it was LA and Seattle were kind of the centers.
Yeah.
And so Oregon was feeling like we were going to get squashed between those. So we shut down early, and now we're like fourth from the bottom, like above Guam, Virgin Islands, like in per capita cases and deaths and stuff.
Wow.
But it also means like we have not opened at all.
Sure.
And I think we're going to be we were the first to close. I think we're going to be amongst the last to open. Have you been doing shows in Florida?
No.
Okay.
No. There were moments where, there are shows going on at some theaters here. Do I agree with what they're doing? No. But Florida has it's almost like we never shut down. It was really at any given point almost like we never shut down because the restaurants opened almost immediately. Restaurant rules, which is security theater. And it was really scary and wild. I have not been out in public spaces pretty much in a year. Like I've gone to the grocery store here and there, but even then it's like, I'm going to get arrested because these people don't want to wear masks. So
I'll tell you,
fight somebody. It's gonna happen.
I was in a Target, couple like at a peak moment, and so it's my fault. I'm going to just preface this for going to Target at that moment. Of course, it had to do with trying to get some piece of gear to make this whole system work. And so we were in there, we're walking around, and these three kids, teenager kids, reminiscent, like three white teenage boys, reminiscent of the ones who harassed the Indian man with the MAGA hats and then won millions of dollars from the news. Yeah. And they had their masks fully down, and they walk by, and I just got like my little teacher in me. And so as they walked by, I said, let's get those masks up, boys. and they walked by, and one of them turned around and he went, "What?"
Yeah.
Like he was gonna fight me.
It's aggressive. It's very aggressive.
And my instinct was to turn around and unleash on him all of my pent up frustration from the entire pandemic. I was like, someone's going to film this. I could be the crazy lady in Target who went nuts on a teenager.
Mm-hmm. That's the problem. And that's what happens. My dog is going to bark on occasion, just so everybody knows.
That's okay. That's okay. And I thought, I was definitely afraid that like he might physically hurt me, and being close to him, I would just be, subjecting myself to more exposure. So,
it's a very aggressive. It's a very aggressive, specific kind of person that's acting like that.
It's coming from a defiance.
And frankly, you're testing his white privilege. She's going nuts
because they know
my brother's here, and she's like freaking out. Foxy, thank you. So
of course, the dog's name Foxy, Elise. That's amazing.
Fox, she looks like a fox. Come here. So, like, it's really you're testing his white privilege. Like, he is in a store and he can do whatever he wants, and you're telling him he can't.
That's true.
Male privilege, white privilege, it's all of it together. So, and then that makes them pretty aggressive.
Yeah. Is there any way you can make your mic a little bit louder?
I tried earlier to change to my other mic.
Gotcha.
Let me see if I can. I'm going to try again.
It's already sounding actually a little bit better. Oh, nope. Now you're gone. Damn it. There it is. Yes. She's just a little quiet, but I don't think I can turn it up more here. Anyway, so we're going to Joe.
Your picture went fuzzy, and then when you said I'm going to turn your mic up, then your picture got better. So this is some weird shit going on.
And look at my lens keeps fogging up.
Is that in real life, or is that an effect?
No, it's just totally just one lens keeps fogging up.
Welcome to the Lose Your Mind podcast. We're losing our minds.
Retrograde. So anyway, we wanted to talk today because we chatted about Second City a couple days ago, and then the next day the sale was formalized and official. The staff was announced or was notified, and then they made it public. And I've been processing a lot of that information that my brother gave us. That was so helpful. And Elise, you just watched that. I was curious, did you have thoughts and impressions from that?
So many thoughts and impressions. The first thing that I think comes to mind for me is that if you just kind of objectively look at all of this, at least from my perspective and perhaps from the perspective of other BIPOC folk, is like, they just got rewarded with tens of millions of dollars for being racist and sexist. Like, that's what I see. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, now we're going to change. We're going to be more inclusive and all of these things. Yeah, but really nothing happened. Nothing. Like, you were just rewarded and paid millions and tens of millions of dollars. We don't know exactly how much, but like, so congratulations, you're racist and sexist. It's good.
I think that I had that feeling even before the sale when it was announced that Saturday Night Live was going to give scholarships for BIPOC students to go to Second City, and I think it's UCB, right? And did you all see this? Joe, did you see this? And then so Saturday Night Live said they're going to pay for scholarships and then promise to see anyone who goes through the program on those scholarships. So it's a fast track to being seen by SNL, which now, in partnership with this money that they just got, was a reinforcement of their power. And
do you mean Lorne Michaels when you say Saturday Night Live, or is there like some people within Saturday Night Live?
Yeah, I don't know who made the decision. The article, I should try to find it, just said Saturday Night Live has made this commitment. And my impression is, right, they've been feeding SNL for a really long time. SNL knew that they were having this trouble. And so they're like, okay, great. We're going to scratch their back because they've been scratching ours for so long. However, and John Carr had not moved yet to Second City. And I was like, why isn't SNL making this commitment to Huge and to Dad's Garage, who are two of the most progressive and successful improv theaters? And Just the Funny is a super diverse group of people in terms of the Latinx population there. So they just reinforced the old system and re-empowered them with the thing that makes people endure crappy behavior, is this promise of this fame and success. So they have regained.
So now I'm going to go to Second City and I'm going to do whatever I need to do to not cause any ripples here. And I'm just going to do what they tell me, and I'm not going to speak up for myself because I want SNL to see me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Tom Bensel just asked 50 million. We don't know that they necessarily got 50 million for Second City. That was just the asking price. So we don't know what the negotiation ended up being. But I don't think, and Joe, maybe you know, did they own Piper's Alley? They didn't when I was there. They just started taking over certain spaces.
Yeah, the answer is I don't know the answer. I mean, if I had to wager, I'm pretty sure I just heard they've been renting this whole time, or I saw somewhere in there that they've been renting. And I think what we learned from your brother is we're not going to ever learn what the price was. So the thing that occurred to me was there a meeting where they decided that $50 million as an asking price would keep people talking about them? Is that the number that makes people talk? Given that they're like, what are you buying? You know, you're buying future stuff. So, well, what number can we put in the paper that will make people keep talking about us so we can stay in the news?
Right. And then obviously the company comes in and does their due diligence. And as Serge said so eloquently in the comments when my brother was talking about how the private equity firm spends tons of money to research this decision, that we watch Second City the way people watch Sony, because we can't afford that kind of market analysis to help us navigate and make decisions. But that's part of why I think, for me personally, I'm interested in, like, what does somebody see in this? Because I have a hard time finding a consistent amount of money to pay everybody the way I want to give benefits, right? Like to give this living wage. And but also they're not improv, they're not long form improv. Improv's always free at Second City.
Well, and I'm thinking that it's just like a used car, because it was like Second City is asking $50 million. So if Second City is a used car and somebody's going to sell their used car, well, I'm asking 50, but then they just kept out OBO, you know?
We're asking for 50 million, but we'll take 5.
OBO.
Or best offer.
Yeah.
$20, we'll take it.
Yeah, we have a $10 minimum.
50 million. I'll give you.
Daniel Barr says no, they don't own Piper Alley, but they are in Toronto. They lost their space in Toronto. I'm so glad I got to see it when we went to Combustion at Bad Dog, because I'd never been to that one. And this sums up my feelings about Second City. It's like my old racist grandfather. Not that I had an old racist grandfather, but Second City is my old racist grandfather. It gave me a lot, and I learned so much, and I love so many of the people there, and it is familial to me. And at the same time, it's racist and misogynist.
Yep.
So when I moved to Chicago, the first thing that happened was the touring companies weren't getting booked as much, and they had 6 people, 3 women, 3 men, and they decided to scale back the cast because they can do a touring company with 5. And so they fired a woman from each touring company, and it wasn't even questioned, because they were like, well, this is how it used to be, and this is how it was when the sketches were written. So this makes sense. And that's a perfect example of systemic racism, is like, oh, we're using these archival things that were made for more men than women, and so now we're going to continue that now, as if a ton of those roles couldn't be played differently.
But you see, this kind of stuff is what makes me even less hopeful. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm not at all hopeful about the fact that a private equity firm bought the theater. But in terms of, inclusion and making them a part of the social justice movement. But for me, it's like, if this is going to be about money, ultimately, like in order to repair what you've just described, for example, or in order to truly make an effort in inclusion, it takes investment. You can't prioritize making a buck and inclusion. And they're in a rush. In either way, they're in a rush, especially like after what your brother was saying yesterday. If they're in a rush to flip this house, like Joe said, right? You just can't be like, all right, BIPOC community, this is what we're going to do. We're going to be inclusive now. Okay, now we're going to talk about how we're going to package this. Like, it just doesn't work. You can't just say, I'm going to do this and that we're going to be inclusive and then say, all right, we did that, and then go and make money. Like, it takes a lot of time and effort and investment. Like, scholarships are free. Like, you're giving away things. You can't make a buck on your education if you're giving away things to be more inclusive. If you're trying to make money, then you're going to out the people that can't afford classes.
Right.
So it's like, I just can't see how they're going to be able to marry both things, and why a private equity firm would want to come into a company and be like, all right, we're gonna give away things now. we're gonna set aside our privilege, and we're gonna make room for the BIPOC community, for women, for female identifying people to come in here and have a space to make reparations. Like, we have all the time in the world now before we make $300 million within 5 years. Like, it just doesn't work.
Right. Although they might be hoping that they say they do bring up the next Black member of an SNL cast, or the second Latinx member of the SNL cast. Like, maybe they would be counting on that. But what they won't do is come in and do like an all Black cast. Like, maybe they would. Maybe John will suggest that. That would be amazing. But like here in Portland, I remember one of our diversity movements from our Portland Center stage was they did Oklahoma with a whole Black cast. And like, it's still Oklahoma.
I know.
Like, God forbid we let the Black cast maybe devise something that's contemporary and relevant and shares their voice, right? And I do think it's good business. That's the part that makes me crazy. It is good business right now because we're tired of the same stories from the same perspective. And this country is less white than it is of color. And I knew that was going to happen when I worked on Popeye as an entertainment property literally 20 years ago. They had the research where they knew that was going to happen. And they're like, can you?
Yeah, but I think it's going to take time. I think it's going to take time to be able to make that happen. And I don't mean time like 15 years. I mean, it's going to take, they're going to have to bring in people that maybe don't have the experience, right? That haven't had the opportunity to have the experience, the privilege to have the experience, and they're going to have to train them. So let's say, John Carr has experience, great. But let's say there's somebody else who doesn't have the experience, like many BIPOC people don't, because they haven't had the financial privilege or opportunity to do something like Second City or to come up in a theater that's known, to build their resume.
This is why I love you, because you're speaking to exactly this thing that I've been thinking a lot about as a member, a solid Gen X person that I am. I feel like we've been smashed between the boomers and the millennials and Gen Z, and we agree with the younger generation, but we did not have a voice, and we got severely punished for using our voices. And so you have people who stayed the course in the corporate environment, were able to make their way, and those Gen Xers are the people now listening to the millennials and are making as much change from within as they can. And then you have people like me who just kind of exited the system, and I've always been orbiting as a consultant and as an entrepreneur. So what I would love is if my generation can help be the bridge of the training and the knowledge and the continuity of like how things are done. And then we train up the younger generation and listen to how things can be done better, differently, non-colonial assumptions.
And, you know, another aspect of what Elise is saying, and I will put yours on it. I mean, I've been in Chicago now for, between 35 and 40 years. So a generation of people is somewhere around 15 years. There's a new generation that comes through. So like the generation of insane talent that came through Chicago was kind of late 80s, early 2000. And so it's going to take to get change, to get Gen X teachers, to get BIPOC teachers and, people that have been othered by the system into the system, to change the system, to let the voices of people that aren't white people redefine or evolve what the art medium can be, what comedy can be. It's going to take 6 or 7 years. And your brother said, like, really for that voice to take hold. And like your brother said, it's usually like a 10-year note. Okay, it's 10 years, change stuff in 10 years. And then leadership, and this is, again, I was expressing my concern for John Carr. It's just like, okay, you've got 2 years, end racism, go.
Right.
Yeah. And even bigger concern for John Carr is that he currently, it feels like every time anybody talks about him, it feels like he currently is carrying the entire BIPOC community on his shoulders. And then not only that, but he's probably carrying all of white fragility within the organization on his shoulders. So it's like, here we go again, giving a black man all the work to do, like it's so complex, and it's also so simple that I'm like,
since we're talking about this, let's invite, if I can, oh my gosh. Mercury's in retrograde, my mouth stopped working. Velvet, I want to get you in here, but give me 1 second. But but we're going to get you in here as well. Velvet Wells is going to join us.
I will say in response to that, Elise, and Stacey, I told you, like, I'm going to reach out to John, and I don't think I wouldn't imagine he's ready to, come in here and talk to us now, because there's sure a lot of stuff he has to see, but he's a dynamic person. He's also a chess master. Like he had a plan before all of this went down, and he knows what he's walking into, and now it's just a bigger version of what he's walking into, and he has a plan. And when he said yes, the one thing I will say that he shared with me is like, yeah, I know this is big, but when else am I going to have an opportunity like this? And it's essentially, I've got a plan. Let's see if they listen to me. And I mean, that's a guy that I can understand the feeling of like, put everything on John. But again, if there's somehow he can persevere and he can chip away, and they do let him do his thing and implement his vision, then that can be the beginning of this, half a generation period of time where more voices can contribute and to evolve what sketch comedy looks like, so it's accessible to everybody. And then it's just good. Then he's going to have that leadership pressure of, whatever board of directors overseeing money people. But yeah, and I was hoping to make that transition so that you could get Velvet in.
I still can't get my damn mouse to work. Thank you for trying. I'm trying to call John Tim, the beautiful tech in the background who's making everything work behind the scenes.
So I don't doubt anything that you're saying about. I don't know John personally, but I am positive that he is completely capable. My concern is just the mere fact that it's just the mere fact that it would be on him,
Sure.
Just like women can do a million things. Like I can do a million things at once, but that doesn't make it any more okay that it's all on me, right?
I also feel like so many of us what I love about running a nonprofit theater with limited resources, as hard as that is every day, what I love about it is it forces me to get better and better as a leader all the time. Mm-hmm. And I'm learning, I'm still learning, but I do think that these communities like Huge, like Dad's, like Zach, like Curious, I feel like we all have had to listen because we don't have the SNL carrot. We don't have the money that will make people endure us treating them like shit. right? There's no reason. We're not paying them. Our audiences are inconsistent, right? Like, so it's, I mean, not that we can't still abuse power, and it has been done, in places, of course, but I feel like with hiring John Carr, like Second City is where a lot of smaller theaters across the country were a decade ago, Joe, as you're saying. Like scholarships and one token leader of color is so 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And and just to echo your point, Elise, it is many things can be true at the same time. And one of the things that's true that all of us that care are taking all of this on all of us. We're taking this on ourselves individually. We're taking this on ourselves as a group. And really, for change to happen, and I've used this metaphor when I've talked before, it's just like it's like we are all part of a military, and some of us need to be flamethrowers, and some of us need to be spies, and some of us need to be diplomats, and some of us need to be infantry, and some of us need to be snipers, and all of this is just metaphor for social change. And what's not going to have change happen as quickly is if every individual who's just a human, whether you're BIPOC, whether you're LGBTQIA, whether you're old white guy, no matter what, if everyone is crushed by the feeling of I have to do everything, then nothing's going to happen.
Of course.
And so now the question is, how can we all look at each other and just say, we all got to do our little things. We all like what do we have access to? What's right around us? Who am I? How am I seen? What influence do I have? What privilege do I have? How can I wield that? How can I connect with other people that have complementary privilege, that have complementary station? How can we as humans be connected so that together we can, attack these problems on many different fronts? But I think what you just expressed is so real for so many of us, where we just, especially in a freaking pandemic, where there's just days where we just feel like everything is on us and we're going to die. I mean, that sounds dramatic, but I feel like that.
Yeah. Okay.
And Velvet.
Yeah. Here it comes. Yeah. Good job, Joe. It worked that time. Hi. It's like my mouse, my keyboard, and my trackpad all lost power simultaneously. Mercury in retrograde. How often do you have to charge your keyboard? Anyway, I guess more than I do. Thanks for being here, Velvet.
It is my pleasure. I am a fan of each of you individually and what we're all doing here as a whole.
So here's Beth Kligerman from Second City has said there is a strong new structure and team that will support John.
And
Good
there has
to know.
to be.
I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah. There has to be. I mean, if you're going to give somebody that leadership role, as Joe was saying, like there has to be that support for whatever his vision is, to an extent, knowing that old systems take the longest to get the buy-in from the money, but still if they're at least going to pretend that they're on board, right? They are going to have to change up the leadership structures so that he can bring in the people he's comfortable with and or work with people who are there he's comfortable with and to enact his plans up until the point of the sale that just happened.
Or the next sale, which is apparently coming in at least 10 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like for us as a nonprofit, an advantage, a silver lining of pandemic times has been that we're going back and looking at everything in our infrastructure through a DEI lens and starting with the board. So we added some more people of color to the board. And even in that one act, it opened my eyes to this huge power structure issue. Like the whole tradition of nonprofit fundraising is like, right, the rich housewives having the big galas and the heavy buy-in to be on a board. You pay in to be on the board, and the status among the elite. And it's a whole different thing now to say, now how do we make this equitable and affordable? And again, without being like, well, if you can't pay, fill out this form, right? How do we change that structure? And I've experienced as a woman some large donors making inappropriate moves on me in my little theater in little Portland, Oregon, right? And then you have that tradition carries all the way up to like Trump and that guy from like Queen of Versailles who are heavy donors in pageants, and then they abuse that power. So we're like, every time we turn over a rock, we find 10 more rocks. And I don't know that they're in a position to do that deep of a dive.
Velvet, do you have earphones or earbuds?
I do.
He has them
Oh,
on.
do you have them? Oh, yeah. I'm hearing an echo again. I don't know if that's going out through the feed.
Me too.
I have the feed muted. I don't even have it on. So
Okay, I'll work on it.
Yeah, I'm also basically blind, so I couldn't see the cord, the cord that's coming down.
And I also stealthed it. I grew the beard out just so that you couldn't see the wires. This is my version of Bluetooth.
It's really good. My beard has turned the color of my ashy skin, so I'm just a disaster.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Just a great point. Being one of the only Muslims in the national improv scene for the past 13 years has been fascinating. I imagine it has been. And I bet there's a lot of stories that go with that.
Yeah, we need to get Fawad on here to talk. And fascinating is one of those words that is used that it's more than interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. We had an HR interview from a very important business podcast with Maya May. And an HR professional was like, interesting is the HR word. Like, we need to talk about this interesting email you wrote. But what were you going to say, Elise?
You mentioned now about just donors in general, but this just again makes me think of where is the money, and donors, for example, have their own perceived power in nonprofits, right? So like when we're having a regular theater season in Florida, I'm part of Florida Studio Theater, and based on donors, like these donors come in and they're like, this is my house, right? They've come up to me after shows, they've touched my hair. It's just been a thing, right? So that, again, it's like, there's the money and there's where they think the power is. And so why would they change if it's always worked for them? So like, this brings me back to, again, why private equity? Like, it's just, when there's so much money involved, it just makes me question, like, how are you going to give your attention to the art? How are you going to give your attention to the people if what you're doing is like, you have to make a ton of money now, like right now?
And I think we've been guilty of that at Curious, and why we're not as far along as, say, Dad's or Huge is because we have been focused on money not for profit, but for survival.
Yeah, survival, right. So to be able to just sustain, which
and
is
any kind of urgency of like, I got to focus on the things that are going to bring in money, so that we don't not exist at all. So I'm saying we're not exempt from the same pressure of focusing on money. It's just for us because we have done, and for them that they're trying to make a lot.
Yeah.
The system is set up exactly for that. At those points where you're doing anything that is anti-capitalist, in other words, that is equitable, that is human-based, it is going to rally against you. It is going to set you up to create this urgency so that you forget and you get back into the business of making money, pushing products that aren't necessarily needed. Just capitalism, not improv. Improv is always needed, but like you're back in the convincing people to give over what they've earned toward what you want. And so the fact that it's a private equity to me is very indicative of maintaining the system as it is. Elise, I absolutely agree with what you said on that. Yes, hope of hopes, because improv also brings out the idealist. I would love it if they do have that D&E, perspective in it, but it's a private equity, so they don't have to. They don't have to say nothing.
Here's something that would be awesome. I've been talking to John Gabratatios and I'll say about trying to. We did that one workshop where we brought them on and we tried to have everyone come and since we all have a little money, if we all gave a little money, we could pay them a fair wage for them coaching us in DEI. How amazing would it be if Second City could use their apparently like a tremendous amount of money that they're going to put into DEI? What if they made those open? What if they allowed us to attend those sessions? I mean, I've applied for grants to try to work with John and I'll say more and have a panel, some international theaters, some nonprofit, some for-profit, and have a little panel that works with them all together. And then hopefully our conversations would benefit other people who can't afford that kind of work. Now that's a use of power versus an abuse of power that would be mind-blowing and win so much affection, I think, from all of us.
Stacey, I just saw that John was watching and made a comment.
Yes.
And so my thought was like, if he's already here, and John, if you're already here, if I jumped off and he jumped on, that I think that would.
I might be able to actually add him as well, Joe. I think we can have 5. So
not to put you on the spot, John.
John, if you feel like joining us, you're welcome. If you do, I'll add you, and if I can't add him, I'll kick you off, Joe.
Cool, love it.
And if we just can't get him on here, then you could listen to him and myself talking on a regular basis on the Elise and John show.
It's a great show.
Which is awesome. And that leads to kind of what I'm thinking of, like, so the reason, and when I asked Joe to do this with me, Joe was like, why are we going to do this? And I was like, because I can't figure this out by myself, right? Like, I'm solving so many puzzles. I haven't slept like a good night's sleep in 12 years because my brain is trying to solve, how do I make the artists happy? How do I make the audience happy? How do I make the bar staff happy? How do I and you add this DEI puzzle is gigantic. And like dismantling capitalism. Apparently I can't do it by myself. So
let's just meet over coffee. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think you could do it by yourself. But what I think is important is how do we? Oh, he's going to jump on in a little bit. So great. I got to give him the link. So
I know he's both loving me
if your
and
mouse
hating
is
me.
still.
Actually, Velvet, if you could send him the same link, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Oh, yay.
So I think a benefit of the internet culture and the decentralization of entertainment from the 3 channels and the 2 radio conglomerates is that we can support like John and Elise directly. And we can actually choose to not pay maybe $120 to go see Bob Saget for the 3rd time and maybe contribute $40 to 3 different BIPOC artists who are creating.
Yeah.
Or send it to one and then find another, you know what I mean? Like give them the 120 and then you find another person to give them the 120 as opposed to parceling it out like that. Like I agree with you. I do. But also you were talking before about paying fair wages.
Yeah.
Not just paying the honorariums.
Yeah.
I mean, honorariums are nice, but let's actually get people paid what they should be, not what they are accepting.
Absolutely. I just think it's fascinating that like our tickets are less than $20. They range from $12 to $18. And people have complained. Like my friends think these tickets are too expensive. And then they won't miss a heartbeat to get a $200 ticket to 1 hour My Favorite Murder, which I love those women. I love what they do. But people are paying hundreds of dollars to go to that 1 hour show. And I find it so interesting that we don't value our local artists. Yeah. We think if someone, we've seen them on TV, we've heard of them before. And I guess that's why I was making it a smaller amount, because at least if you're risking, right, like take a risk on someone. That's why I love the whole fringe circuit, right? The fringe circuit's all alternative arts and alternative people, but they keep their prices low, like at $12, because people don't want to take a chance.
But also I agree, and I've done those things. But also, the lower you set it, the lower value they attribute to it.
Yes, absolutely.
People are much more willing to buy a $16 cup of coffee than they are to buy a $10 ticket to a show.
And you know, when we opened, the like realtor who we were working with told me that she was like, these might be too low. And I'm curious if how things might have been different. Here's John. I'm gonna add him in here. Yeah.
Hey,
John.
Excellent.
hey guys.
What a
Hello.
party. I want to do a show with all y'all right now.
Hope it's okay that I called you out.
Yeah,
Go
no,
do it.
this is great,
He
guys.
was,
I was
he was
just
already
gonna
wearing a
listen.
cool ass jacket, so he was like, "This works."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, it's above 0 degrees, so yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about inclusion. I got it.
Before we go to that, I just wanted to answer Stacey about the pricing. Before we got into the pandemic, one of the conversations we were having in Toronto was, why are we keeping our prices so low? We are not in step with other entertainment that's happening that's not about improv or stand-up, like other improv, like going to the movies. If we can't even keep in step with going to the movies, then we are selling ourselves too short. And this wasn't just about BIPOC performers. This was every single comedy show was staying in the 10 to 12. Like we at 15 even, we're like, wow, are you getting people in? It's like, not without hesitation. People are still coming to the show. So a move was starting to happen to increase that price up to 20 or 25 as a base and it didn't matter what day of the week it was. It didn't
Interesting.
matter if it was a Tuesday show or a Saturday show. If it was a good show, people were paying it without hesitation. So now that we've hit a reset, now that we're online and offering all these shows, and because we've been so stage hungry and so connection hungry, we've been giving it away for free. So we will, because this isn't going away anytime soon, we will need to figure out to get back to that capitalization of our talent.
So I have
Like,
a
and just-
follow-up question, because that's all awesome what you said. And then I start to worry, say we start charging $27.50 like the comedy club does, plus 2 items and mark up everything. Now we've made it inaccessible on the other side of keeping our audience diverse. So
I still do that too. Look, there's always going to be an excuse to not include people who can't afford it. Somebody's always going to have that as their, well, we can't do that for whatever reason. And I just did it anyway. It never hurt I could always find another seat if that's what it took. So yes, you have to be mindful of it. You can't just go, okay, everybody, it's $100 per seat. Like you need to be mindful of your market and what that will bear. And then you also make sure that there's still room for the people where money, it will always be a barrier, period.
So
$1 too much.
Something we've been doing for workshops is reserving a certain number for pay what you will, with no pre-qualification. Does that seem like a nice approach? Is that problematic in a different way that's not coming to me right this moment?
So immediately, yes, obviously that is an option. Immediately I say, so does that require a credit card in order to get the ticket? If it does, that's a barrier. If you could, in the live spaces, you could get a ticket at the door, so that's less of an issue. But if in order to get an advance ticket, you need a credit card, not everybody has one necessarily. Even if they have one, it doesn't necessarily connect to that system. So those would be the caveats to, yes, that's great if. And that's just
it brings
off the
in
top
all
of
of
my head.
the issues of like affordable housing, right?
Yeah.
Where will
Yeah.
the seats be? How many do we have available? How do I have to get on the list? Like it brings in all of the issues of affordable housing, which again, it's like we do have to balance, like, what are we going to do? Are we going to actually stay open? How are we going to offer everything? I'm sure John has plenty to say about that.
Yeah.
I guess look, I don't know what the answer is. I don't have the answers, but I do know one thing is that they got a private investor and there's a lot of money. Yes. And another thing I know is there is a lot of money that can be invested in people that problem solve this stuff, like finding new pay models. That can be found out by just hiring bright people to sit in a room and figure it out, or at least have a couple of options that are viable. And I haven't seen that be taken seriously, by like a a real investor or a big company like Second City. And if they do that, then
No, that was a
Oh,
beautiful.
I thought it was a dramatic pause.
Yeah, you did
Okay,
just
there
for
you
1
are.
second, but it was in a really, it could have been a portrait of you.
I gotta go, guys. The feds. I gotta go. Yeah. No. Okay, I'll take it back from that last line. All right. Netflix. That's the competition. No. I think honestly, if Second City doubles down and really like puts money in this, what I think we're talking about is, can we have this Second City stay alive and also reconcile the history that they have, which has done a lot of harm. If they can really put that money in getting, people from the community to be paid and to help with this sort of bridge the gap, then I think that is, for me, a step forward to want to care beyond just the people. Like John Carr, like whatever he needs, I'm down to help and support. I'm sure we all are. And I think that's where my investment is. My skin is in the game. Julie Osborne, education director there at Toronto Second City. I got skin in the game with Julie. And if they get harmed in any way, then like everybody else here, we'll burn it down. We burn down precincts and we burn down institutions.
Yeah.
No,
They already had a fire there. So it's not new. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Okay, but I'm gonna circle this back again, and I'm gonna say, yes, we're gonna invest all of this, but how are they gonna do that and still turn a multi-million-dollar profit?
That's what we gotta find out. They're not gonna, but that's what we gotta try to find out. They might have other paid models or different scales that are just
Dramatic praise.
Yeah. Yep,
Good.
another
No,
one.
it's good.
Another great expression.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I think I just heard him.
I think he can still hear us.
Oh,
there he is.
What? There he goes. You're back.
That is a portrait there.
Very badass.
I love this. This has been a slideshow of John portraits. It's been pretty exciting.
This is a pitch for his new undercover detective show.
Yeah.
I have something that interesting that we could.
This is one they have on the-
It's fascinating. So I was on the website today for ZMO. Is that or ZMC?
ZMC.
Yeah, ZMC. And I was like, all right, let's see. I wanted to check out their team. I wanted to check out like what their brand was. Their team is pretty young, actually. Their team is hi, John.
Hey, I'll take myself off of here. But is there anything I can speak to specifically? I'm loving listening to it. Also, I think the feds are onto me. So,
Anyone have a question for John before we let him go? Great, thank you, John. It was great to have your appearance. Let's do it again.
yeah, I got a question, but I'll take it off air. What is our response if shit gets real? But meaning they just like capitalize, leave, and then burn everybody who's marginalized, and it's just like it's bad. How do we respond? I don't know. I'll take my answer off the air. I love NPR. You guys are great. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, John. And that is my question is like, yeah, what can we do? I'm always wondering, like, what can I do now? What can I do later?
I mean, the first step is like, even what we're doing right now is we're evolving the community. We're educating what the taste for this type of entertainment will be. What does multicultural, multilingual, multi-gendered comedy look like? International, yeah. And so some of it is, what is the ongoing conversation about what we expect? So I don't think we're going to come up with necessarily a documented demands, but we're looking, and we hope they succeed. We hope there's success. We're not hoping for failure, but how can the conversation continue that's both supportive, but then also that is spoken for all of us? Like, what type of things are we looking for? What are we looking to expect? And I think to John's point, they got to be banking on online entertainment, or, there's something that we can't see what all of this, what your brother was talking about, these millions of dollars, and like, what can this be?
Yeah.
But I don't see it either. Like, to Elise's point, I don't see how they're going to all of a sudden, open doors and then turn what did he say, 10% over 10% profit every year?
20% year over year.
Yeah,
Minimum.
I don't know.
Yeah, minimum. Theater is such a human-based business. It's so different from anything else. So we have our 3 admins and we manage 100 performers, 100 students. That's a very odd business model to have that many people involved in your community and that small of a resource to manage all of those humans. So it's managing humans is time intensive, it's expensive. So when I first got into the theater, business people were like, you should spend about 30% on staff, 25 to 30% on your hard goods. But we spend over 50% on staff, performers, producers, right? It's there's very little else once your theater is built. You're serving drinks and you're serving humans. So I would hope, and I think that this idealism that you were talking about, Velvet, is like we're skeptical and we're holding our hope back if we can, but we all care because we want it to be a power of good.
I feel like because the announcement about the teachers union, if they do not block that, if they work toward making that happen in both countries, that's a great step forward. And that for me is like, okay, they're at least making the effort of looking like they're making the effort of truly moving forward. Whether or not they're going to reconcile the past or not, I don't know. But at least in terms of the moving forward decisions, they are more on the side of the people than just the bottom lines.
Elise said it would be helpful. I'm sorry? Oh, yes.
Oh, you said you had something else earlier.
Yeah.
So.
But I want to jump on what you just said also. Like they can put their money where their mouth is and put their mouth where their money is, right? Like, yes, invest in all of these things, invest in inclusion, invest in people, invest in training, invest in actually bringing people in, but also how about like just a very clear line of transparent communication on a regular basis? I think one of the biggest thing that will be required in terms of any company with inclusion is communicate to the people who actually would be affected. Hey, we just hired a Black man to take care of a whole lot of shit. We understand what this might look like. Here's what we're going to do to make sure he has the support. A, B, C. Right? And that all of a sudden will make me be like, all right, okay, cool. I'm going to be like, let's see it. And then once you start to say it, then do it, and say it, then do it, I'm going to start we're going to start building trust, right? But I could tell you with the BIPOC community, they can say they're going to do things 100 times over, but that if they don't start to actually transparently communicate and then follow that up with action, it's not going to go anywhere.
And continue to communicate and course correct and absolutely 100%.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say is that I was on the ZMC website and I was just kind of like trying to figure out what is this. And their team is pretty young. It looks like a lot of millennials. It has some diverse voices, it looks like. But I looked at strategy and I was like, let's see what kind of fluff they're serving. And building differentiated businesses to create value. ZMC's investment philosophy focuses on working closely with management teams and applying an operational approach in business strategy execution. So far, I went to law school and I parsed every single case on the planet. This means nothing. The first paragraph has told me nothing.
Right.
Second paragraph.
Purposely tells you nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, ZMC targets transitional growth companies and special situations through broad-based research and ongoing trend identification. Still nothing. They believe its deep industry insight and focused investment approach provide the firm foundation to develop and implement highly effective post-transactional value creation initiatives. Do I need to say more about this?
I love you so much.
In partnership with management, the ZMC team aims to take a highly supportive and collaborative role in each portfolio company's strategy and operations. What? It means nothing. It says nothing. So if that is the private equity fund.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that they're going to be like, down with systemic racism.
Right.
But what you just read could be a Second City sketch.
But it's also like that's typical business language.
Yeah.
There is not. I mean, I understood everything they said because I have been part of pitches or presentations that have had segments, if not the whole thing. That literally is almost the business template of, especially when you're talking about diversification and like all of the things that they do. Like it looks good. It sounds important. It sounds like very necessary. But it doesn't hold them down legally to actually define how they will help or how they will hinder, or like when they'll let go of these transitionally, these companies that they've taken on. They won't tell what their future is, So yeah, it is all very safe coded language that only needs to pass muster with other firms when they're talking about hey, look how successful we are, or look what an offer we're giving you by letting you have this company now.
And they don't have any explicit commitment there for anti-racist behavior.
Oh, no. Not even a little bit.
I mean, I will say that as a corporate trainer for 25 or 30 years, it's either Berkeley or Stanford. There was a study that said they studied all different types of of org charts. So like what type of organizational model guarantees a company's success? And nobody could figure it out. And they examined every different type of model, whether it's hierarchical or incentive or whatever. But what they did find out was any organizational model can work as long as one thing exists. And that is people working within that model feel like they are heard and that they are heard. Mm-hmm. And that married with Elise's idea where you have to communicate and be transparent. We are hearing people. Here's how we're hearing people. Here's what we're doing as a result of we're hearing people. And now at least we've got something we can measure.
And that's why I wanted to start doing these and talking about the business side. And it's something that's happening in the Canadian fringe circuit as well, is people are starting to talk about money. Performers are starting to share what their rates are and how they derive those rates. Because if we all stop, keep not talking about it, right, and keep it secret, women and people of color are going to continue undervaluing ourselves and be undervalued because we were told that's what we're worth, and that's the history. So I have a big commitment to transparency in our organization on this other side. As a venue operator, there is a lot of misunderstanding and assumptions about money that people are making when they don't understand where the money goes. It is more expensive than you could ever imagine to run a theater. It is crazy how many, just one, right? Because when you owe many, then you spread those costs out. But everything costs so much money. So transparency helps eliminate a lot of the imaginations that's happening also. So you are accountable for what you say with transparency. And also you're setting more realistic expectations. And what scares me about a private equity firm was how much my brother emphasized privacy and how much accountability is really hard to follow up on when it's a lot of people who aren't even paying attention. They've just entrusted someone with their money to invest it, and they're not invested in what those businesses are or how they're run.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't a private equity firm that is about buying businesses that are progressive, right? You could choose to invest that way, but you wouldn't invest in this company.
And on the other hand, like they already have their foot in the game in media, and media alone. I mean, we can spend days here talking about the problematic practices in just generally media. So like they've already been doing this for a long time. It's like, is an old dog going to start to, learn new tricks? I don't know.
And can they not just be the man and we're all the little guys? Can they be a part of the greater community nationally, internationally, and contribute and be a leader? right? If you've got the most money and if you've got the most power, that makes you the leader. I remember a coworker of mine was an executive at Coca-Cola, and he was telling a story of a man who was stationed in Africa, and he had a great worker who was local to that region, and they kept offering him a promotion. He kept turning it down. And finally, they brought him in. Why don't you want this promotion? He said, if I accept this promotion, I'll make the most money of anyone in my village. And when I make that money, I become the adjudicator of the community, and I will be distracted from my work. And they said, we'll accommodate that. And so he was working in his office for Coke, and then marital disputes, property disputes, he would handle those, because there comes a responsibility. With great power comes responsibility.
Yeah.
Just like on Alone. I know Joe watches it. I don't know if you two ever watch Alone. There's that one where the guy just keeps killing those giant eels, and then everybody else is all like hungry and like, oh, it looks like you're killing an eel over there. And like that guy has to decide, is he going to save that eel for himself to make it to the end, or is he going to share that frickin' eel with the people who don't have the weapons or the skills or the experience or the background to kill eels the way he does? That's my DEI analogy, is Alone.
Something that I'm thinking about, like, as we're talking about all of this, like, I realize how much, like, we care about this. Like, I have no personal connection to Second City, but I'm following this closely because it matters to the community, right? And I think about how, like, we all care so much. We got online, we started talking to each other, we started making podcasts. And it reminds me of, like, when I was in law school, I used to say, like, there's a very thin line between a law school class and a mob. Like, if we all, it was really bad. But like, if we all really care this much, then there should be a very thin line between the improv community and a mob. And if this doesn't turn out to be like what it needs to be, then we need to gather and like John said, burn it down. Yeah. However we're going to do that.
Matt Sherman wanted to point out that you can't imagine how many eels it takes to run a theater. Well, we've been going for an hour. It flew by. So I think it's a great place to wrap it up, since we really came to a great understanding of eels and theater. But before I close it down, Elise and Velvet, I would love to let you kind of bring it to a close and share any last thoughts you have. Velvet, do you want to go first?
No, I'd like Elise to go first.
Great.
All I'm going to say is that if anybody else wants to adopt a mob mentality as the improv community, I say that we do this.
Yeah. And I think we do care, Elise, because I just noticed somebody said it was a great place. Like, magic happens there because improv happened there. Creativity happened there. Ensemble-based art happened there. So there's no way that even when the executive producer tells you he'll never hire a woman when you're in the directing program to direct the main stage, you stick around because there's so much other beauty there.
Yeah, but that's also, for me, like, I hear that. I think it's so, I'm with you on that, because with I feel the same thing with other theaters, like, that I've had experiences with. I've had such magical moments. And still, like, every serial killer in jail probably made his mom cookies one day.
Yeah.
I wish I could hug you so hard right now. I just love you so much.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Fidel Castro murdered a gazillion people, but maybe he made a mean Cuban coffee that everybody loved to gather around the table. Like, ultimately, I hear that. And I think that's something that perhaps we can mourn if something goes down the wrong way, right? I validate that. But I think that we all need to decide, like, are we going to be on each other's team or not? It feels like we're getting there.
And the magic isn't just there anymore. I mean, and Beth Kligerman, if she's still watching, I know she won't mind me referencing, like, as we opened 12 years ago, Huge opened a few short months after us, like, there are the theater sports that are all kind of 30 years old, right? There's the Dad's Garage and the SAC Comedy Lab, but there's a bunch of independent venues that have opened in the past 10 to 15 years, tons of them. And the magic is there too. So Second City doesn't hold that magic. They have money and they have industry connections. That's what they have over us. But they don't hold the improv magic over us. We all have that. So, all right, Velvet.
I am very glad, Elise. Thank you very much for that, because I have been on the outside since the beginning. So I do not hold. I hold fondness for some of the connections that I have made through there. I hope for the best for the people who I know who are engaged in that system. But I had to learn a couple of times that you do take care of yourself first. You walk away from the toxic relationships, and for me, that was that. And the way that they've handled some of the things that have been brought to their attention, it took decades for enough people to speak up for them to go, oh, we're going to make a change. So my faith in that change, in that transformation coming under John, I truly, truly hope that it does. I hope that this injection of money gives them what they need to be able to take the proper path for this. But for me, whatever magic memory I may have is not enough for me to just forget the past hurt, the past harm, and let them blithely do whatever they want as if nothing has changed. Because as you say, we have other places that we can go. The internet has democratized our spaces so that we don't have to hold to a theater space in order to create that magic. I certainly hope someday that I can go out my front door again. At this point, I doubt it. But at some point, maybe I'd like to do that. And I would like to meet up with more people. But I am not holding my breath. I'm not waiting for them to get their act together in order to be in the communities where people are already getting their act together. To me, they win. I hope that Second City catches up. As you said, some of the things that are being done are a decade-old strategy. I hope that they catch up quick. But so I am not going to sabotage their efforts.
Certainly, right.
I certainly hope for the best, but I'm also not waiting in order to do what is right and better.
Awesome. Thank you all. And we'll just end this knowing that we're all ready to burn the fucker down if we need to. We're all here
Mob
for
mentality, all right? Yes,
I'm in Portland, you guys. I'm in Portland. So you all, I'm trying not to use the word guys. Also.
Oh, I say y'all. In Toronto, the Second City used to be at the fire hall, which, when they left, it got made into a condo. So, it kind of goes full circle, I guess.
It does. All right. Thank you all. Thanks everybody who's been watching and engaging. And we're just going to keep doing these and see what we can learn. Thanks everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.